Would you love to incorporate more of this large motor and fine motor developmentally appropriate skills in your homeschool? Would you love to spark more fun and joyful play and projects? Then grab the free samples of the Peaceful Press curriculum. We have linked them in the show notes, and the free samples can guide you into which resource might be the best for your children. If you have young preschoolers, 3 to 4 years old, we recommend the Peaceful Preschool Volume 1. It's great for learning their letters, but it has all these fun play and projects, fine and large motor skills built in. And then follow that with Peaceful Preschool Volume 2 and Nourishing Nature Kindergarten. You can even do the Nourishing Nature Kindergarten with a 6-year-old. There are great social study and science activities incorporated. If your child is in 6th grade, you could add a little bit more math or phonics if you want to, but there's a lot of word building and just active math skills integrated into the Nourishing Nature Kindergarten. And then when you dive into our elementary resources, we also continue to include projects, nature walks, and other kinds of large and fine motor skill work that will really help your children build a very healthy, whole body that can help them tackle any challenges that are presented to them in the future. So grab the free samples from thepeacefulpress.com or use the link in our show notes and save 10% with the special code Restoration 10 just for Restoration Home podcast listeners. This is Jennifer Pepito with the Restoration Home podcast. This is the show where we talk about the peaceful path to connected families and restored communities. Today on the show, I'm so excited to be chatting with Kate Strickler. She is the author of the book, I Just Wish I Had a Bigger Kitchen. And I'm so excited to chat with her today about finding contentment in our home, however big or small it is. So thanks for joining me today, Kate.
Yes, thank you so much for having me.
So I'd love to hear a little bit about how you kind of developed this message over the years of your own journey with children.
Yes. So um the it's funny because the home part really came before the book. I think the home really early on, I started to have a lot of feelings about my home, and I was on social media where it's like very easy to see just beautiful homes and like big kitchens and big clean kitchen islands. And I was like, I don't have a kitchen island. I'm trying to make dinner for my family. There's stuff everywhere. But I really started to realize that one, tons of other people have kitchens just like mine, like the vast majority of people do. And also that I was really able to use my kitchen really well. Like I was able to feed my family. I was able to do what I wanted to do out of it. And so I started to really take my home and think like, how can my home suit the needs that I have for it? Like, how can I really see this home as something that's going to serve my family well versus constantly trying to make it look like this beautiful, pristine place that nobody lives in? And so that piece started like 10 years ago for me, of just really, especially when you start having kids. But even before we had kids, I just remember being in a rental apartment with my husband and just being like, okay, how do I make this home feel cozy? I can't paint the walls. Like, how do I, make it my own? And then from there, when I was on Instagram, I started to share other areas of my life that I was just struggling with contentment, struggling with, whether it was like friendship, or I would say like, something going on in my marriage, anything like that. And how many people would respond and be like, wow, I had no idea that you felt that way too. Or I would have never guessed that you struggled with that. And so I felt like I had this huge amount of people that I knew were having similar feelings that I have. But I was like, I wonder if they still feel alone. Like if I have the benefit of knowing that a bunch of other people struggle with this because I'm seeing it in my messages. But if you're somebody that doesn't have like a big platform, then you don't realize like a lot of other women are also struggling with this versus you feeling like you're the only one. And so that's a lot of like where the impetus for putting it into a book came from, of like, man, I know if I struggle with this And I know other women struggle with this because I've seen them in my messages. And so just wanting to create something that other women would read and be like, wow, I feel less alone knowing I'm not the only one that has just wished for whatever it is.
Yeah, and I love you have the account Naptime Kitchen. You have quite a large following of people who are also feeling the same way. And I remember when I first went on Instagram, it was around maybe 2014. And until then, I had brown kitchen cupboards and brown countertops and white walls because all of those things are really practical. Like they hide dirt when you're raising a big family. I had 7 young children at the time, and then you go on Instagram and it's like everybody has white kitchens and they have wood stumps in their house and they have sheepskins on the floor and all these really impractical things. And suddenly you feel like, oh, my house is actually really subpar now that I've seen what other people live like. And this is a pretty new phenomenon. Like you could buy a magazine, but it wasn't constantly in your face how inadequate your home or your kitchen or even your life was. And we're just all comparing to the highlight reels of other people and not seeing all this stuff they shoved over in the corner to make it look good, or they're whiny, messy children because they've given them zero contact, zero connection all day. And so I love that, you're talking about, I mean, this is real life here and not just the highlight reel because our children are growing up really fast. And if all we're doing the whole time we're raising them is complaining about what we don't have or complaining about how inadequate our spaces are, we're really losing a lot of connection.
Yeah. Yeah, it's true. And I just think it, even regardless of how you feel about your children or how involved in this they are with you, I just think that it's just like these little knocks all day long on your happiness when you're constantly feeling like, gosh, if I just had more, man, if I just had more. And I was like, man, I don't want to live my whole, like, I would hate to look back when I'm 80 and know like, gosh, it was like the most beautiful life. I had the most beautiful life. Why was I like why was I so bothered by my kitchen counters or my jean size or whatever it was? Like I would just hate to look back and be like, gosh, I wasted so much time just wishing for like the next rung on the ladder.
Yeah, and that is so important to think about. One of the things that we do in the Restoration Home community is we write down what we want our children to remember about us when, at the end of our lives. Like, what do we want them to say about us at our funerals? Or what do we want them to remember about life in our homes? Because people are the real thing. Like, at the end of people's lives, nobody asks them, what are your biggest regrets? And they're like, oh, I regret that I didn't have subway tiles. You know what I mean? Nobody says that. It's always about people and about how maybe they didn't spend enough time with their people. They didn't have enough connection with people. So how have you dealt with that though? Because we like I know that I did this. I loved my children. I wanted to be the best mom ever. Connection with them was so important to me. But also when I was having people over, sometimes I was frantically cleaning. And also I know that if I did go to a friend's house, because this is pre-Instagram, so I couldn't look at all the houses online. But I had this one friend who had a house, it was straight out of Restoration Hardware, and when I would come home from her house back to my double wide modular home with old cupboards that I'd painted this terrible green color, I would feel really discontent. And so how do real moms who, I mean, the economy is really tough right now. A lot of people are living in homes that they don't love and having to put up with, brown countertops and brown cupboards and thankfully wood color is back in fashion again because my new kitchen is also
Praise
very
the Lord.
because it does hide fingerprints. But, how do we on the daily like refocus so that we're present with the people, especially in these really important formative years?
Yeah, it's such a good question. It really is. And I want to say, like, I think sometimes we can put a lot of like, oh, don't focus on the things. It's so superfluous or whatever. But I do think it matters. I think that you're spending a lot of time in your home and you care about your family and you want to create a really warm and wonderful environment. But I guess I would say like you really can do that regardless of your space and regardless of your cabinet color. Like, I think that the feelings that you want to invoke don't have to come in a certain color scheme. And, it's funny. I used to joke that sometimes I would clean before people came over, but then like at the last minute, I would purposely like get a bin of toys and like spill it on the ground just because I don't want someone to walk into my house and feel like, ooh, this is so clean. And I need to make sure my kids help keep it really clean. I almost want them to feel like, hey, there's toys on the ground. I hope that your kid plays with the toys on the ground. Like that, not to say my house was so perfect that I needed to messy it. But like, man, I want somebody to walk into a home that feels lived in, that doesn't feel like, oh gosh, we shouldn't touch anything, which normally for most of us is pretty easy because it's hard to make your home not look lived in. But I guess what I'm getting at is like, it is good for your home to feel lived in because you are in fact living in it. Like that is a good thing. Like I think about if I were to buy a new top and it sat in my closet unworn versus like it gets broken down and after a few years it looks old. It's like, well, good. I used the top. I bought the shirt to wear it. So it is good that after years the shirt is worn. Like that is the point of the shirt. And so the point of your home is to be used. And so there's an exercise in this. I got to do a podcast with Kelly Hampton, and she is ETST on Instagram, but she did this like really fun exercise where she went through old TV shows any show that you love, if you like go and watch it. Oftentimes, if you look at the kitchen, they do a really good job of warming up a kitchen. Like there's magnets on the fridge, the toaster's on the counter, there's like a tea kettle and tea mugs. Like they make a home look very lived in and cozy. And there's something about that we really yearn for. And it's kind of the opposite of this like sterile environment that we think we want. We actually find a lot of like comfort in the items that make our homes our own. And so I think there's something to be said about like if once you get home, you've been to this person's house that's absolutely beautiful, you wish it was yours. There's something to be said about looking around your own home and being like, what do we use in here all the time? Where do I love to sit and drink my coffee? Where do my kids find me in the morning and give me a hug? Like, what about our home is ours and familiar? And how frustrating would it be if you took everything off of your counter? Like, would you wake up the next morning and be like, oh, I have to get out the toaster every morning. I have to get out the blender every morning, whatever it is. And just kind of remind yourself of like, what are these things that we're using because this is our home?
Yeah, that's so good to just remind, people it's like having that more lived in space, having accepting even the stage of your life. If you have a newborn and a toddler, you just can't have everything be perfect all the time. And I have a high value for the atmosphere. I'm a Charlotte Mason homeschooler, and that means that atmosphere is like one third of the educator. But that doesn't mean it's perfect. It means you have a plant. It means you have some art hanging on the wall. It doesn't mean it's perfect. And so just being able to accept the season you're in. And one of the things I'd love to ask you about too, speaking of seasons, this is coming out mid-October and then we're heading into the Christmas season. And I think that decorating for holidays can actually be one of those things that actually totally take us down. Like we might be cruising along, we're getting the laundry done, life is not so crazy. And then all of a sudden we feel like we have to, stack 90 pumpkins on our front porch or we have to, put up a whole Christmas village. And maybe we don't have to do some of that to make our homes happy, fun, cheerful places. But I'd love to hear your perspective on holiday decorating.
Yeah. Gosh, it's funny. We are very minimal in the holiday decorating. It's like I see it online. I want it. I want to have like so many great decorations. But the reality is we don't have a huge home and we're a family of 6 in this home. And so I can very quickly start to like crawl out of my skin if I add a lot of things to my home. And so one of my favorite things, and I learned this from Michael and Smith, the Nester, she talks a lot about what are things that you can, how can you decorate in ways that don't take up any space? So this sounds so silly, but music is one, scent is one, and food is one. So it's like very much going into fall. What are recipes that I can make in the fall that like help make our home feel fall. Like maybe that just means like I make pumpkin muffins once a week. You know, I'm not saying I do, I'm saying that could be a possibility. Or what's a candle that I could burn and it takes up no space, but it fills the space? And what is music that I love in, like, what if I played like Christmas jazz just kind of all day in the kitchen? And those things like don't take up a lot of space. And then jokingly, I just do a lot of decorating high up on the walls. So I love to hang our Christmas cards. That's like one of my favorite things is, so we have like, we hang string around the door frames and we hang our Christmas cards. And then uh, at Halloween, I do those bats that you like stick on your wall because they're fun. My kids love them, but they aren't taking up like counter space. I'm not putting out a bunch of like pumpkins because I don't have the space for it and it ends up stressing me out. But before Christmas, something I share on Instagram every year is I take, you can do this with the bin that your Christmas decorations go in. It's actually a great way to do it. It's like when you get down your Christmas decorations, if you take them out of the bin that they're in and then walk around your house and take away anything excess, meaning like magnets off the fridge, a picture frame that's normally on the dresser, whatever it is, you take all of those things and you put them in the Christmas bin and then you put out your Christmas decorations. You're not adding a bunch of stuff to your space because you've taken away things from your space. And that I have found to be so helpful before Christmas is like, let me just clear out the things that are normally out and replace it with Christmas stuff versus adding all this Christmas stuff too. Cause then I'm like, oh my gosh. So it almost is like an even exchange. And that helps me a lot with Christmas decorations. And then when I go to put away the Christmas stuff, the normal stuff is in the bin. So I just like make that swap again. So that's a pretty practical thing that helps me.
Yeah, super practical. This year, I bought 2 pumpkins in the dollar spot at Target.
Uh-huh.
They were probably cheaper than real ones. They were glass, not plastic. And I stuck some leaves on my mantle and I got a new candle. So I felt like,
Yes.
and on top of which, where we live, it is so hot still. If I did put pumpkins on the porch, they would be rotten in a couple days.
Yes.
So not,
That it's like ours like just devolve into just this disgusting mess on our porch because we too live where it's hot. Fall is hard for me to decorate because I'm like it's 85 degrees outside today.
yes,
I don't
yes.
know how to do this well.
And there are seasons, like I think for moms listening, if you love decorating, that could be part of your routine. If you're homeschooling, decorating, making a little nature display on the table, putting out some colorful pumpkins, that can actually be part of some of the homeschool lessons. Like let's arrange pumpkins. Which ones are bigger? Which ones are smaller? Let's go collect some beautiful fall leaves and some acorns, and let's identify the leaves. Like the decorating can be actually part of the way that you're teaching and training your children. But if you're having to ignore your children for a day so you can decorate, it just might not be the right season for that. And, I was at a party last night with a friend whose kids are getting a little older. They were at an activity and she went and she did get like 20 pumpkins, and it was so pretty and so fun to be there for that. So I think learning to embrace the season you're in is so important for being a happy mom. What are some of the other tips that you talk about in your awesome book for being content and happy?
Yeah. Well, it kind of depends on the chapter. So I'm trying to think. So yeah, we just talked about the home and like how viewing your home in that way. Another one of the chapters that has really struck a chord. One of the most popular chapters I would say was I just wish I had more friends, which was pretty difficult to write. But I think it really strikes a chord because it's not something that we're talking about a lot as women. It's just the like desire for adult friendship and desire for belonging. And so in that chapter, I share a lot of like my insecurities and in making friends and in different seasons of life, what that's looked like. And it's funny because early on, I had like, 12 to 13 hours a day with my young children. So it was a lot more like, hey, we can hang out for a super long time at the park. We're going to get interrupted 50 times, but we have like a lot more time. And now it's more like, well, who am I hanging out with after school with my kids, which is a much shorter period of time. But it's been funny to see in different seasons how friendship changes. And so, again, when they were younger, I could drive 30 minutes to meet someone. And now it feels a lot more geographic of like who's in my neighborhood that I'm spending time with. And so, practically, I think with friendship, it's felt a lot of like, how can I be open handed to the season before me and like who God is just placing in my life to be friends. So, like, like in the homeschool community, if you're in a homeschool co op, like who is just around you that would just naturally be easy to try and build a friendship with, and just kind of opening yourself up to like, how is this probably going to look different than it did when I was in college and had all the time in the world? But like, how can I cultivate friendship now in my life? Um, and one of the questions I ask at the end is like, what are you looking for in friendship and how can you be that in friendship? Because I think often it can be easy to just be like, oh, woe is me. I really wish that someone would ask me to go for a walk. And it's like, okay, who can I ask to go for a walk? Like, if there's something I'm desiring, how can I make the first move in cultivating deeper friendships?
Yeah, that is such a good reminder, and I think for many of my moms listening, they are homeschooling, and that for me was the ultimate way to make friends because when you go to and I'm sure it's the same if you're serving in your kid's classroom or things like that, when you're actually around other moms and their kids when they're being a little bit messy, it breaks down that pride. When we first meet people, it's easy to kinda keep things on the surface and look like you have it all together, but when you're at a co-op and your child pees their pants, or when you're at a park day and your child fights with somebody, the humiliation of motherhood sort of bonds you with other moms, and it does take, being I think when we can just be with ourselves, like just the adults in the room, it takes a little longer to get to that point. And so I'd love to hear like even some more tips on developing those communities where you can be real with each other and really love each other through the ups and downs, like through the days when their home is decorated perfectly for the holidays, but also through the days when maybe their child is sick and is a disaster and they need some help.
Yeah. I in the book I write about, I think one of the most underrated ways to grow a friendship is to allow yourself to be needy. And I think it is so hard for us. It is very hard for me. And I shared that after my fourth child was born, it was a very rough season for me. And I had one friend, she like brought my son home from school one day. And when she got to my house, I had like I was still in my pajamas. I had spit up on my shirt. I probably looked pretty rough. And she texted me later and was like, "Hey, I'm leaving the school every day. We live in the same neighborhood." She was like, I can bring him home every day." And there was this big part of me that like wanted to be like, "No, no, no, it's fine. Like I can get him." And also I could not physically return the favor because I already had other children. I could not fit all of our kids in my car. And she was like, "No, like it's fine." And so what that did is it made it so that I saw her every single day because she dropped my kid off every day. And it was like, wow, in allowing her to do that for me, I ended up seeing her every day and we ended up becoming much better friends. And I've started to think a lot more because even in this book tour season, so I'm on a little book tour and I have had one friend a week bring me dinner, and one of my friends set that up. And Nate, my husband, was like, "Golly, I feel kind of like, do we need this? Like, we're not going through a tragedy. We don't have a new baby. Like, we're just in this book tour season." And I was like, I think I'm really starting to learn that people want to help. That one of my friends, it is it is so fun for her to get to do something for me, something very tangible for me. And I love it when I get to do something tangible for someone. And so I just say that to say, I think a big part of friendship that we really struggle with is just allowing ourselves to receive and allowing ourselves to be the one to ask for help and be needy. But I think that that's where like there's like a vulnerability there that allows for friendship to grow. For you to be
Yeah.
like, I don't have it all together. Kind of like you were saying, like the you see somebody's child pee their pants at homeschool and you're like, you know what? My child's pee their pants too. Like there's like a vulnerability that takes place when you need someone's help.
So good, Kate. I think that's a really important reminder because often we think that we'll be loved if we do things well, or if people are, having to, if we're working for people, then we'll be loved. But sometimes we are loved even more when we show who we really are, when we show the messy side, which is another reason to not worry so much about perfection in your home, and be more attuned towards like the needs of the people in your life. So what a good reminder. I really love that. One of the things that we talk a lot about in the Restoration Home community, on the Restoration Home podcast, are habits, because habits are these kind of anchors, whether they're health habits or spiritual habits or relational habits. They are these anchors that really bring so much growth and peace, and even a sense of order to our lives. So I'd love to know, what is the habit that's most transforming your life right now, especially in this super busy season? Like, what is that one anchor that's still, you're still kind of hanging on to?
Yes, it would definitely be in the morning. I wake up and I exercise like first thing before my kids are awake. I mean, and I want to caveat this because I'm so sensitive to anyone listening with young children that are like, it's just not possible that you're like, I'm not being woken up in the night anymore. My kids sleep through the night. So I'm just always so sensitive to like, don't do this if you have like a baby that you're nursing in the night or anything, like that was not, I was not in that season. But there's just such a repetition to how my day starts. I like wake up, I move my body for like 30 to 45 minutes. I then either read or pray or listen to the Dwell app for like 10 minutes. It is nothing huge. And then my day really gets started, and that is just very like sacred time to me. I just really appreciate how I feel with those things starting the day.
Yeah, I love that. And I think that is important for moms to note, is that it doesn't have to be something big. Like, it doesn't have to be this 10-item morning and evening routine. In the retreat I recently did, I asked moms to just start with one or two items that you're going to work on. Like, the 1% small doable change can start to make you feel like you have a little bit more authority over your life, especially like if you are in that toddler season or the baby season. You can't have a lot of control over your life. You have to be so responsive. Like, are they hungry? Okay, I'm gonna have to make food now. Are they fussy? Okay, we're gonna have to do cuddles now. Do I have to start the laundry because they did pee the bed? And so our lives are so much more about responsiveness than about a rhythm or routine in those early years. But if at least there can be one or two things a day that you do that make you feel like a sane person, whether that is, reading the Bible, exercising, talking to a friend, just something that helps you feel like you have some power in your life, even though it's a very sort of powerless, you're on a train and you got to stay on the train season.
Yes. And just on the topic of movement, because it helps my anxiety so much to have daily movement. And I remember when I had a newborn, I would do like a 10-minute workout. And then when it was over, if I felt great and the baby was still asleep, I would be like, you know what? I'm gonna just try another 10-minute. Like I would just really build no more than like 30 minutes, but just kind of like, I'm just gonna try for 10 minutes. And normally I would feel great, and if the baby was still asleep, I could like add another 10. And if the baby didn't, if the baby woke up at minute 5, I was like, I'm gonna let the baby cry for 5 minutes. The baby is going to be fine while I finish this 10 minutes. And like you were saying, like just being like, I have the authority to decide that I can do this for 10 minutes. And it really is so empowering in such a short amount of time to just be like, I'm doing something for me, and how it can affect your day so much.
Yeah. It's a good reminder, because it is easy in those seasons to there's a self-forgetfulness that is necessary in raising children. There is an element of sacrifice, is absolutely a part of the deal. But also, we are humans, and there are some basic things we need. In October, the Restoration Home community is working on habits of taking supplements, because even in those busy seasons, it can be hard to remember just the most basic thing. And then you're not sleeping well, or you're feeling agitated, and maybe you just need to take some magnesium and sleep better.
Yes.
So, just sometimes it's the most basic of habits that can make the difference, and then really save you and your children a lot of pain, because we do live in a, kind of emotionally heavy world, and there's a lot of things that we're worried about as moms. And so if we can just do a little bit of self-care, it's going to make a big difference for our children and how regulated and peaceful they feel. So,
Yes.
is there any like final words of wisdom you'd love to share from your book. I just wish I had a bigger kitchen. And also, where can people find you?
Yes. The last thing I would probably say is if you're listening to this podcast, you're probably like already doing so much better than you think you are. Like if you just have a desire in your heart to raise your children well, like to the point where you're like, I'm going to seek out a podcast that is talking about this, then I just want you to know I think you're doing an incredible job because a lot of people just aren't even probably thinking about it. So the fact that you care about it just says a lot about your heart. And so I just hope you know that you're really probably doing a really good job. And it just, you care, to seek out resources like this means that I think you care. And I am Naptime Kitchen. So you can find me on Instagram at Naptime Kitchen, naptimekitchen.com. And you can buy the book anywhere books are sold.
Amazing. Thanks so much for sharing your insight today, Kate. We appreciate you and are so thankful for the time that you shared with us.